Welcome to Printing Profits. Hey folks, welcome to Printing Profits. I'm Talish. Well, we finally reached the last episode of our second season, and we've got a real treat for you. See, today, I'm joined by our executive producer, Laura Zelvyte. Laura also leads our content team here at Printify, who create fantastic articles for our blog. And if you haven't checked that out yet, I cannot recommend it enough. You can find it at printify.com/blog. There's lots of great info on there about products, marketing, business tips, design trends, and so much more. But today, Laura is here to chat with me about something else. After each of my interviews with our guests this season, I asked them one final question. What's the best advice you've ever been given about print on demand? And we've been saving them up so that Laura and I can go through them together with you right now. Laura, I can't believe I'm saying this, but welcome to the show.
Hi.
So what exactly, for the people who are listening, what exactly does an executive producer do?
Oh my God. I'm a bit more than an executive producer. I'm the content team lead at Printify. And I do a bunch of stuff. I do the content marketing strategy and all the content that comes out of Printify, including this wonderful podcast that I've been producing for the last year, I want to say.
Yeah, it feels like a lot, but it has been a year, 2 seasons in a year. And for this last episode, I really wanted to talk to you because as somebody who works through all the content, making sure that people get their marketing tips, their design tips, basically anything that happens on our blog, who better to go through the best advice being given about POD, which is what we asked all of our guests this season. And I can't wait to hear what you think about some of these clips. So why don't we drive right into it?
Let's do it.
All right. So when it came to best advice, one thing that our guests this season could really agree on was the importance of picking a niche and doing niche research. So when most sellers create and list those first few designs, whether they know it or not, they're actually really creating for themselves. And they really struggle to understand why no one else is buying their products. And Tiana Scott, who we talked to about building a business budget, explained why.
The best advice that I've ever been given about POD is to design for demand. So to do everything I can to get to know my target audience, my customers, figure out what niches are relatively low competition, are like highly searched, and find those words and design for what people are already looking for rather than creating designs and praying that people come to me.
Yeah, it's all about research. I think it's great advice, and especially knowing that in any company or brand that you work for, if they have company values, I guarantee one of them is going to be something along the lines of customer obsession. It's you basically have to figure out who you're selling for,
right?
Before you actually design anything or decide which products to put your designs on. And to do that, you have to do some research, obviously. And I think also a really great advice in this is to understand what your competitors are doing. Nobody knows their customers better than your competitors.
Yeah.
So figure out what they're selling, what designs they're making, get inspiration, and do it better.
Definitely. Now, just because you design for demand or research what customers in a niche like, it doesn't mean that you can't create or cater to what you yourself like as well. Christina Ramirez, who we spoke to about incorporating artificial intelligence tools into her POD workflow, talked about how she ended up picking a niche that resonated with her and how it kept her going.
I think the best advice given to me for print on demand was to find really specific niches to me. When I first started, I was trying to create designs for teachers and nurses and what I saw selling on Etsy instead of looking at my passions and my niches that I could design for because I was already in that niche. And I was way more likely to stick out because I wasn't competing with thousands of other stores doing teaching and nursing. Instead, I loved creating designs for my store, and I was able to make more sales that way.
This is something I personally relate to because when I started with my own personal store, I wasn't sure what to sell. So I was just playing around with the designs that I could make with my own capabilities because Spoiler alert, not a designer. But eventually I kind of went what I liked the most, which is like fantasy, romantasy, book talk inspired designs. I found a couple of freelancers to collaborate with. I did learn a couple of design tricks myself, which is crazy, but it's all because I had so much fun doing it, because the niche I picked was just something I was passionate about, and that makes it so much easier to stick with it and to make the products that somebody's gonna really, really like.
Absolutely. Now, the other piece of advice that our guests this season really stand by is just to keep going, to persist. Now, obviously, there's some growing pains when you start an online business. There's some frustrations, but you also never know which design might be the one to catapult your store to success unless you try. As Dory Schmidt, who we talked to about the importance of paying attention to the details, explained to me.
And I would say that the best piece of advice that I've gotten is to keep going, because you never know when your very next design could be the one that gets you through that glass ceiling. It gets you the bestseller badge. It takes off, and that's sometimes all you need to get a little bit of traction in your shop and a little confidence in your heart to keep going. So I would say, when you don't want to keep going, keep going.
I think it's important to understand for people who want to start out that all of these success stories that seem like overnight success stories that you see online, they're not overnight.
Absolutely.
There's so much work that goes into it. Those are the people that stuck with it, like really stuck with it, so that the ones that put in the work. And that's how kind of, that's when you blow up. Our data shows that most people quit after making just a few sales, and then they plateau, and that's when they kind of quit. But if you power through, add more designs, another thing that our data shows is that the more products and product variations, design variations, people have on their stores, the more they sell. So those are like, most successful merchants are the ones with hundreds of products on their stores. Looking at it very logically, more products means more queries, more work, of course, but it means that more people are gonna see it and search for it. Another thing to keep in mind that Etsy, like what I've noticed myself, the longer a product is on Etsy, the higher it ranks, even without ads. And the more products you have, and the more you sell, and the more reviews you get, the higher it gets ranked by Etsy. So of course, the more people are gonna see it. So you can't get discouraged. You have to keep going if you really wanna make it.
Absolutely. But I think it's also important to really just adapt and change your process as you go, because figuring out what doesn't work is just as important as understanding what does. And Alejandro Capellan, who I spoke to about customer service, really mentioned that a big part of customer service is actually listening to your customers.
When you are selling your products to your customers, listen what they have to tell you and do some modifications to make changes to your website, to your product, to your description, according to what they are saying to you. So I think the best thing you can do is start and listen what they have to tell you.
I started off as a writer in my career, so I kind of relate to it. I think I understand why it's sometimes so difficult to hear what the customer wants to say. Because I think people put so much of their identity in their products and in their designs. So it's obvious that if a customer says not so nice words, it's going to be hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, right?
Yeah.
But there is feedback that you absolutely have to listen to. About quality, like, you might test your products, you get samples, and then the t-shirt you have works, is staying perfectly vivid, and the design isn't washing out, but then your customer says, oh my God, I washed it twice, and now it's gone. Maybe they use a different laundry detergent or something. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they use bleach in their laundry. Listen to them, maybe send them another t-shirt or something. Just because customer service is very, very important, and you have to know how to adapt. And you also have to know when to back down. You need to know when to stand your ground and just pick your battles. I think that's the advice.
Absolutely. I mean, no matter how much you persist or how much you adapt, though, getting to a level where you're making the kind of money you want to will mean, adapting, but also keeping your goal in mind. And no matter how big or small it is. When I spoke to Joe Robert this season about what it means to build a brand online, he explained it to me like this.
No matter what you're doing in life, you need to remember why you actually started it, because inevitably at some point there's going to be a time when it's not fun. There's going to be a time where it feels like work. There's going to come a time where you try something and it doesn't work out. And if you're just doing this as, a creative outlet for yourself, like late at night or something, and there's not a tangible reason for you to actually be spending time on a print-on-demand store, you're going to be one of those people that closes down their store. And becomes frustrated and just kind of gives up.
Yeah. This is a big topic with my team. Then when you get bored of what you're doing, when you're kind of feeling burnt out. So, and I've been asked of like, how do you stay motivated? You've been doing this for so many years. I'm not always motivated. It's discipline. I think it's a fact with anything.
Yeah.
It's discipline. Is waking up every morning and deciding to do what you need to do. And with print on demand and with what Joe just said, important to remember and understand why you're doing this. So if it is just a creative outlet, fine, that's completely fine. You can make a couple of $100 every month just to have extra money for an extra sweater. Or, if you really want to make it big, if you want to, spend 4 months a year in Bali working remotely and having a passive income,
Sure.
You're going to have to really double down and you're going to have to do the hard work. You're going to have to create a lot of designs. You're going to have to monitor your store and talk to customers and invest in marketing and all of that. You have to do the footwork first and then you can enjoy the cocktails later.
I love that. Enjoy the cocktails later. It's funny that you mentioned the footwork, though, because one of the examples that I give to people about being successful in POD is this idea that I compare it to sort of running. I don't run at all, but I know that there's many types of people who run. There's people who go for a jog every day. There's people who run half marathons, and then there are people who are Olympic sprinters, right? And so the difference between all these people is the amount of time and effort that they put in. And I think that success with POD is very much similar. There's a lot of people who are, just doing this, like Joe said, late at night just to, earn a couple bucks there. But the people who really succeed are those Olympic sprinters, who really put in the time to ensure their success, right?
But do you think it's a sprint? I do think it's more like a marathon.
Oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe maybe being successful at POD is that full marathon,
Yeah, right. It's just kind of sticking through it.
Right. Now, the final bit of advice that our guests this season really stand by is making sure that you're showcasing your products in the best way possible. And it all starts with your mockups. Now, in my conversation with Gina Odato about fast-tracking your success, she mentioned how important mockups were to reaching her six-figure sales.
The best advice I've ever been given about POD, I think personally, is the mockups. Like I said earlier, mockups make or break your listing. It has to be aesthetically and visually pleasing. If it's not, your customer is going to scroll right by. You need to stop their scrolling with a mockup. So focus on a good mockup. Also, try to not have the same mockup that everybody else and their mother has on Etsy. There's some that just everybody has. If you can kind of stand out, and that's why I made my mockup store to be a little different, to do outdoor mockups, because I saw a lot of indoor mockups, and I thought if I'm outside, that might draw a customer in because it's a little different than what they're seeing and used to seeing on the Etsy result page.
I couldn't agree more. Truly, no, I couldn't agree more. And I'm gonna speak a little bit from marketing point of view, but also from I want to be a successful merchant point of view. So from marketing perspective, product photography, right? So it has to be pretty, it has to be nice. It's difficult because you don't actually sell the products yourself. They're shipped from somewhere else, right? But there's tools to really, you can either use AI or tools like Placeit to create those mockups. But I do have to agree where you don't use the same mockups others do. You can look up your competitors and and look what they're selling. What mockups they're using, and don't use those. You can even, like, if you're selling a t-shirt with, I don't know, dancing skeletons, look that up and you'll see that there's so many mockups that are exactly the same. Like the design is different, but the mockup is just exactly the same. So you're not going to stand out. So this is one of the competition is fierce.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, one of the most important things to do is to have unique mockups. When I was using Placeit, I purposefully didn't use the popular mockups. I actually steered clear of them, like the first that come up. I really dug deep and tried to find the ones that are a little different and also that fit my niche better. Whether it's like something that matches just the design and color, or maybe it's a person doing something that kind of relates to my niche. That was a big help, but actually getting the samples and taking the pictures made all the work, the whole, that's what, really took the sales off. And I actually started making crazy sales after that, when I used real pictures. So if you can do that, do that. But if you're using mockups, don't go for the obvious skill. Don't go for the popular ones. Be unique, stand out.
I'm glad that you brought up samples, because the interesting thing about mockups, like you said, is that, they're easy to get either by buying them online. A lot of people on Etsy do this, or they generate them with AI. But what really sells, like you just said, is using real examples of your products in your mockups. And in fact, in my conversation with Ashley Whitlatch this season about marketing, she stressed the importance of making that investment in samples.
So I think the best advice that I've gotten in regards to POD is definitely getting the samples. I think that's something that was so crucial to having my business be kicked off with success and having a ton of repeat customers. I think that's been so exciting. And you're not going to have that unless you know that they're getting the quality that you want them to have.
Again, couldn't agree more. I'm going to share a personal story. I like every product that I have on my store, I got samples for. One hoodie that I was particularly proud of came in, and I realized it's just not the fit I want to sell. Like, it's not a hoodie that hoodies, if you know what I mean. It just doesn't look good. It was very clearly styled and made and designed for a very bulky, buff man. I don't think that, I'm not here to, use stereotypes. I don't think that bulky, buff men read romantasy books. So it was not really my target audience.
Yeah.
So I had to, go for different ones, but different products. And another thing is, again, this is print on demand. You don't ship it to yourself. You don't get to touch the product. You don't get to, check and pack it yourself and check the quality.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important. Why you absolutely have to get samples. Invest in it. You don't have to get every single design that you have, but test it out, because you don't want to be selling garbage to your clients, right? Like, you want to be, and not that there's any of that on our catalog, but I'm saying that it might not be to your liking. It might not fit the way that you want. It might be lower quality than what you would love to have on your store, but you have to test it out. Doesn't matter if it's a sticker or a hoodie or a tapestry or something like that. You have to,
Definitely. Well, sounds like good advice all across the board. Make sure you focus your niche, adapt them to what you like, persist, don't give up, put in the work, make sure you have your goal ahead of you. Make sure your mock-ups and you're showcasing your products the best way. And finally, of course, get those samples, invest in them, right? I think that's pretty. What would you say? Is there anything else that as a seller yourself that you think it would be really good advice for somebody?
Oh my God. Persevere.
Yeah. Don't give up.
Don't give up. And also try to have a good time with it. It is stressful. Like Etsy, like selling stresses me out.
Yeah.
But it's fun also. It's a really, it's a double-edged sword where it is stressful, but it's a lot of fun. So persevere.
Let me ask you a question. One of my interviews that we've done this season, a lot of the stuff that I've heard is that to be really successful, whether it's Etsy or Shopify, you kind of have to have a level of obsession with it. Do you agree with that?
I think that's with anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like with any kind of work that you do, and especially in creative outlets, and especially with like online businesses. So whether you are an influencer or you have an online store or you sell courses or you're a life coach, whatever, you have to have a certain level of obsession. I think most successful people have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree.
Well, Laura, thanks for doing this with me today and sharing your thoughts. It's been a lot of fun. And also, thank you for putting this season together with me. And I can't wait to see what we come up with next.
Me too. And thank you for having me.
Exactly. And thank you so much to everybody who's been listening to this season and the first. We'll be back again with a new one next year. So no matter where you are in the world, have a happy holiday season and, of course, a happy new year. This is Printing Profits. Hey folks, thanks again for listening to Printing Profits. We'd like to thank Laura and all of our guests this season for chatting with us and sharing their journeys with you, and at the same time, introduce you to the talented team behind this program. Executive producer, Laura Zelvyte. Associate producers, Anita Njoki and Amalia Schwarzkopfer. Technical and video production, Emils Yasuns and Valerie Zolechno. Sound production, Christers Hartmanis. And I'm Talish Suffer. See you next time.